Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. There it is. Thank you very much to IAPP for inviting me and for the work that so many of you are doing on the front lines of digital privacy. At a time when there is so much devastation and suffering happening in the world, it might seem strange to be speaking about privacy. But I see it differently. I see privacy as a foundational issue, one that underpins trust, safety, and the stability of our societies. And getting this right will have global consequences. Now, my connection to privacy and the lack of it begins in a different place than most, from birth. And you may know that I've spent the last 7 years in litigation against 3 media organisations in the UK over their systemic and unlawful invasions of privacy, as well as the cover-up of it, dating back to the early 2000s. The worst examples of an industry that too often behaves as though it owns people's privacy and feels it gets to decide what constitutes the public interest. And unfortunately, I've come to learn that this exploitation has become normalized. The breaches of privacy have morphed into commercial tactics across industries, notably the tech industry, with innovations like social media platforms and advances in artificial intelligence. As you can perhaps tell, I have nothing to gain from taking on powerful institutions. In many ways, it comes at a personal and reputational cost for me, my wife, and our children. But is it worth it? Absolutely. Because this is about more than one individual. It is about the systems that shape and influence all of our lives. Across my work in business and philanthropy, I've seen how the current model of technology isn't just failing to support progress. It's actively setting it back for communities around the world. Over the last several years, I've had countless conversations with experts like you all, along with parents and young people who have experienced firsthand the loss of privacy while coming of age in our modern, increasingly online world. I've done a deep dive into the tech-fueled world in which my children, all of our children, are growing up in. I've heard harrowing stories of how time spent on the platforms of today's tech giants is leading to grave and irreversible harm. Stories that all but cancelled out any entertainment or other value those technologies were offering. Stories about how the existing so-called solutions calling for bans and blocks and parent toolkits were unrealistic and ineffective, given how interwoven tech has become across every facet of life. Stories about fears that without adequately addressing privacy across social media, we would never be able to reckon with the challenges of the next technological chapter, artificial intelligence. Simultaneously, I'm seeing constant headlines about state-sponsored surveillance, doxing of election workers and civil rights activists, and massive privacy breaches featuring social security numbers and sensitive health information. The more I learned, the more I felt my own experience with having my privacy owned was just one small example of an extraction problem that we can miss its gravity if we aren't forced to stare at it. But stare at it we must. The challenge ahead of us all is significant and worthy of our attention. For anyone outside of this room thinking it won't affect them, think again. The good news, we are confronting this challenge and we are stronger together. This room of 4,000 people is evidence of that. This room of people with the power to prioritize privacy. You, collectively, can rewire our entire system. The fact that humans are the architects of this technology means that humans are in the position to design a better future. And a world where the right to privacy is not just an ideal, but the norm. So let's take a step back to focus on how we got here. The uncomfortable reality is that many of the privacy-related harms we're now grappling with today are not the result of failure, but the result of success. Systems optimized for extraction are doing exactly what they were designed to do. And this is no longer a debate, no longer opinion, it is fact. So what has failed isn't the technology, but the alignment between power, incentives, and responsibility. Because power, especially at this scale, demands responsibility. And where responsibility is absent, harm becomes predictable and inevitable. Which means the challenge in front of us is not simply better compliance, but better alignment between business models and human outcomes. And to get to that alignment, we have to peel back another layer, because business models don't just appear.